Hey folks, it's Keith Beardsley of the Beardsley Real Estate Team with Century 21. Here today, as mentioned in sort of the intro video, with the beginning of a new series looking at what I call seller do and don't. Things to do and not to do when you're getting your house ready for sale or when it's on the market for that matter. So it's going to cover a variety of issues. There may be two or three videos. I'm not too sure of the number at this point. As I start to do it, I tend to add things like a lot of people do. So it may get longer. But this is a very important video. This is one that says to you, don't do the following items. And if you have those items or if you've got those thoughts, think twice. Now, every agent is different. We all approach real estate differently. These are my thoughts. Other agents will totally disagree with me. So that's the way it is. And I don't mind if they do, because this is the way I do my business. I try and make it worthwhile for all of you. And I do a lot of seniors. So seniors are in a very different spot, many of them, compared to younger sellers who have, maybe two people working in the family. Seniors are on a pretty tight budget, especially if it's a fixed pension or just a government pension. So these are some of the things that I want you to consider. And in some cases, basically don't do them. And there are ways around some of them. So, number one, what are we looking at? Well, the big item is renovations. You can have somebody show up at your door and say, "Oh, yeah, you have a great house, but your bathroom, it's dated. I think you need to renovate your bathroom before you put it on the market." I answer, no. You may have somebody come in and look at your kitchen, the color of your cupboards, the type of cabinets you have. And they'll say, before this goes on the market, you better replace all of that. No one's going to want to buy your house looking like that. My answer, no. One of the main reasons for saying no is the cost, what it's going to cost you out of your pocket to do this versus what are you going to get back when the house sells. Now, if you look at most renovations, and I'm using numbers now that are out there, these are not numbers I make up, some of the National Association of Renovators and so on. What they will tell you is you're going to get probably 50 to 60% back on most of your renovations. So if you spend, let's say, $8,000 redoing your bathroom, if you can get one done for that price, you can add $8,000 to the cost of your home. Doesn't work that way. If you spend $20,000 or more on a new kitchen, you can't just add that $20,000 to the cost of your home. You're not going to get it back. So for most people, renovations are simply not feasible, not financially possible, especially if you're seniors. And my statement to that is don't worry about it. You know, houses are lived in. We've lived in our houses for a long time. Yes, it may not sell as quickly as that brand new builder built home down the street, but nice houses, good houses, always sell. It's something to keep in mind. So, what can you do? Well, if you've got that bathroom that really is out of date, you've got a couple of choices. Number one, you can always buy new faucets or something, and it's a few $100s, but I don't even think I'd do that personally. But you can clean that place up. You can make that bathroom absolutely spotless. If you've got grouting in the floor or around the tub or around the shower, look at it. Is it in good shape? If not, why not replace it? That's something you can do yourself, or you can bring someone in to do it. That's your call. But the grouting has to be absolutely spotless. You don't want someone coming in and looking at the bathtub and seeing moldy grouting all around the side of it, right? It's just an instant turnoff. So you can really scrub it. You can clean that place. You can make it look absolutely spectacular. You may even paint it. Paint, while it's expensive, it works wonders on a house. And that's the other thing with your house. Probably one of the best things you can do is paint the main rooms. All right, your living room, your kitchen. Now, maybe you can't afford to do that, in which case, make sure again, everything is clean, very, very clean. So don't get caught up in doing these expensive renovations. I always say, yeah, and who are they suggesting do the renovations for you? No, if you don't need to renovate, like if it's not a disaster, leave it the way it is. At the very least, you can adjust it in your price. So that's one of the things don't do is to get caught up in that. You don't need to replace windows. The windows that are there have survived and you've survived with them. You may get, if you put new windows in, 70-74% back. That's the number they use. But how much is it costing you out of your pocket to put those windows in? Windows are not a very inexpensive item, right? They cost big dollars. So keep that in mind. You will never be able to get all of that cost back. You can't just add it to the cost of your home. If your roof is in bad shape, this is another item, and we'll get into some of this later on in another video. What shape is your roof in? How old is it? Let's take a guess. If you got 20-year tiling on it, it's going to be good for 10, maybe 12, 15 years, depending on where it faces, the angle of the sun it faces, and so on. To replace a roof, though, it's expensive. You may get 60% of that cost back, but not 100%. So putting a new roof on your house to get ready for sale, not really all that economical. So if your house is looking a little drab and so on, paint. Paint is always a wonderful thing. Scrub, scrub, scrub. That's one of the biggest things. If you have wall-to-wall carpeting, many of the older homes do, right? That was the style. If you go back into the 70s and the 80s, everybody had wall-to-wall carpeting, and then it changed over the last few years, and people want, hardwood and everything else, hardwood, laminate, and so on. So if you have carpets, does that mean you have to rip them out? No, not at all. You don't have to rip them out, but get them really well cleaned. Right? That's absolutely one. If you have a few bare spots, you can always put down a little throw rug. Buyers will lift the throw rug, I can tell you right now. But get it cleaned, not by yourself. Get it professionally cleaned, and get it cleaned a few days before the house goes on the market. About the time when the photographer comes through. You want everything looking good for that. So that's something you can do. It's not overly expensive either. Other things you can do. Well, the backsplash in the kitchen. Scrub that, make that absolutely looking perfect. Kitchen counters. Make sure every little stain is picked off them. Don't just leave the counter sitting there and, yeah, it's been good enough. And yes, there's that stain there. It's been there for the last 5 years. No, no, no. You got to do some work on this and get it clean, scrub it up. And no, you don't have to go in and replace all the kitchen counters because you've got butcher block and someone says, well, the new one today is this. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Styles change. Even for the buyer, you have no idea what the buyer's going to want. And this is the other thing for the renovations. You can put a ton of money into a renovation, get that kitchen looking absolutely perfect for what you think the buyer will want. And the buyer who buys your house is just going to rip it out and put in what they want. So, let's not get hung up on where the money goes. So scrubbing, cleaning, definitely. If you have appliances that are being included, and even if they're not being included, let's say a stove, which is one of the worst offenders. When was the last time you cleaned it? And I don't mean just a general cleaning. I mean a really deep cleaning, getting every single thing out of there. Because I can guarantee you that buyer's going to open the oven door and look inside. Same with the burners, right? When was the last time you changed those aluminum cups there on the burners or scrubbed that up? It's got to be done. It takes time. So you don't just do it overnight. You've got to stagger time, do it out over a few weeks, whatever the case might be. Window treatments. This is always a good one. Now, many of the homes, if you were a senior, when we bought the homes, my home included, we had the big drapes, those heavy drapes, right? Some of us even had the box across the top that everything hung from. So if you have that, you've got two choices. One is to take them down, because the drapes, heavy drapes, dark drapes, make the room look a lot smaller. In many cases, they're also blocking the light from coming in. So you've got a choice. You can take them down completely, or you can, put up shears or something like that, or you can tie them back. But if you tie them back, make sure they're not covering half the window. So very important. You've got to get light into that room. The brighter the room, the bigger it's going to look. The more you have heavy drapes, the smaller it's going to look. Buyers are looking at size. They're not taking out a tape measure to measure the room. They're just looking at a room and guessing. So that's a very good one to consider. Many houses today have those Venetian blinds, either the vertical or, of course, the ones that go across the window. Clean them. Because if the buyer decides, well, they want to see if they work and closes them, you don't want them looking at a wall of dust. So small things that you can do, which will make a big difference. Because don't forget, all of this tells the buyer, at least in their imagination, how you look after the house. So if they're finding this, that, and the other thing sort of hasn't been upkept or doesn't look good, the buyer's mind is now saying, so if this is how they keep a house, what are they hiding? What can't I see? You want the buyer to go in and go, wow, this person really looks after this house. And then automatically they're reassured that this is a house that they might be okay with. Other things to do, as an example, on your fridge. How many of us have these magnets, pictures, grandkids, drawings, and so on? Or if you're a young family, you may have your kids' drawings on. Take them all down. For the purpose of the sale, take them down. For the purpose of the photographer, absolutely take them down. All right. You don't want any of that showing in the pictures. And it's not just because it looks cluttered. Security wise, stop and think about it. What are you telling the outside world? You've got young kids in that house. Do you want the whole world to know that? No, not from a security standpoint in this day and age. So you take all of that down. You make it look nice and neat. And yes, I know some of us like to, have a magnet and put where our next doctor's appointment is or whatever on there. No, take them down. The next item tied to that one is that notice board that so many people have in the kitchen. It's got thumbtacks on. This is thumbtacked here. There's a picture there. There's a, who knows, an appointment thumbtacked to the board. Take that down as well. One, it doesn't look good, especially in photos. And two, it tells the buyer and the buyer's agent information about you, information you may not want to share, and information that might hurt your negotiations. How many people put all their doctor's appointments on a calendar right beside that thumbtack board? You walk into a house and you're looking at it, and we know, most agents can tell you if it's a senior's house. I get that right. Most agents can tell you if it's a senior's living there. And if you walk in and there's that thumb board and you look at it and wow, every week there's 2 or 3 medical appointments. What does it tell the buyer? Maybe there's a reason they're selling, right? You don't give anything away. And it's for your own privacy as well. You make sure all of that stuff is down and done and out of the way. So those are a couple of the items, and there's so much more too. Artwork. You walk into a room and someone's got very different paintings, or photos. I had one that I sold. The person was a professional photographer. And you walk into that house and it's lined with pictures of naked women. What do you think got looked at? The pictures or the house? Right? So you got to stop and think. If you are maybe involved in politics and you have lots of different items posted on the wall, well, maybe they're not your political persuasion. And it takes very little to turn a buyer off. What about your pets? Now, if you have a pet, and I would say normally, if at all possible, you remove the pet for a showing. especially if it's a big dog. A lot of people are nervous of dogs, and your dog may be the friendliest thing going, but some buyers are really terrified of dogs, especially big ones. If you have cats, it's going to be an issue for some people who are allergic to cats. So if you can, just get it out. And some of you have different animals in there. As an example, I can think of selling a house where the person collected snakes. Think of that one. You walk into the rec room in the basement and there's a wall of cages. It leaves an impression. I had another house where people had pet rats. So wherever possible, remove the pets because otherwise it will make it tougher to sell and it will turn a lot of buyers off. And the longer your house is on the market, the worse it's going to be for you. If you are someone who has to take a lot of medicine, as an example, um, and I've seen this in a lot of seniors' homes, don't line up all your medical pill bottles on the counter. What does that tell the buyer? Put them in a drawer, put them away somewhere. And in fact, you don't want someone stealing something, depending on what the medical items are. So there's lots of things in here that you can think of. I'm sure there'll be a lot more. But the key thing when you do all of this, right, because we're coming down to price, you have to price it as accurately as possible. When you're in a crazy market like we had during COVID-19, who cares, right? People would put a price up at almost any house, assuming any price, and it would sell, even over that price. That's not our market now. A very different market. We're into a market now where things are sort of flat. They might increase a little bit, but it's not an active, super active market. And when you get that type of market, you get a lot of houses out there. That gives the buyers a lot to look at. So if there's anything in your house which they don't like, they're going to move on to the next one. And for your part, you simply have to sell, as best as possible to your timetable for a price that's fair. So the moment, and going back to the renovations and all these little things, when you put your house on the market, don't think you're just going to add all this stuff up and top it off. So if the agent comes in and says, "Oh, your house, I don't know, it's worth $500,000," and you sit there and you say, "Well, I put in windows 15 years ago and they cost me this, and I replaced all the light switch covers from those plastic ones to these other ones 5 years ago, and they cost me this. And I changed the light in the bedroom, I don't know, maybe in 2016, and I can add that in." No. And that's why we go back to the renovations. You cannot simply add things in, it doesn't work that way. It's like a roof. You put a roof on your house because it was leaking. That's not an upgrade, that's maintenance. You replaced your air conditioner which was from 1990, and you replaced it, who knows, 10 years ago. That's not an upgrade. It's a used air conditioner at this point. So you have to be logical in what you do. You have to look at what you have done to the house and ask yourself, did I do it because I wanted to enjoy it that way? Or did I do it because it was an investment? Usually, you can get the answer when you do that. But don't think you can do that. And agents will spot this right away. Because of all the houses in your neighborhood, let's say, who knows, you have a 3-bedroom bungalow. All the 3-bedroom bungalows in your community for the last 2-3 years have sold between 600,000 and 700,000, as an example. And you're out there and you're at, who knows, 750, 800,000, because you want to try and get every last penny back that you ever spent on the house. And an agent looks at the listing, and the first thought is, overpriced. And then the other agent who has the house listed has got a comment in there, over $100,000 worth of upgrades done over the last, who knows, 2-3 years. instantly, we think overpriced. So you never want to be in that position. You want to be logical. You want to be fair to yourself for sure, but also stop and think. The other agent is working for the buyer, and they're going to be taking your house and comparing it to another house on the market in the same community and pointing out the differences. So don't overprice, don't get carried away, but yes, do your homework. Do your homework and get it ready. Now, there will be other videos in this series. I'm going to do one on getting ready to go on the market. Not in other words, things to do. Also, how to prepare for a home inspection, because those are the things that always scare everybody. Somebody going through with an inspector going through your whole house. So we'll do one on that as well and give you a few ideas how to get ready for it. Anyways, if you like this video, if you have comments, please add them down below. I always read them, always enjoy them. Pro, con, doesn't matter. I always have fun reading them. And I hope this video helps a few of you. I hope this video helps some of you to get organized and realize what's at stake when you start to get ready to go on the market. And for all my seniors out there, don't panic. You don't have to spend a fortune to get your house ready. It's Keith with Century 21 and the Beardsley Real Estate team, wishing you a great day.